Hello and welcome to the MMA Live Chat Show. I'm Rich Davie and it's Wednesday, March 12th, 2014, 3 days before the UFC 171 Hendricks vs. Lawler event. On today's show, we'll be giving our predictions for the main card in the UFC 171 Hendricks vs. Lawler event. And if we have time, we'll talk about a couple of other MMA-related topics as well in the Final Thoughts segment. On today's show, we have yours truly, Damon, and David. Okay, guys, thanks for taking part in another show. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here and joining me to discuss UFC 171 Hendricks vs. Lawler and to give your predictions for the main card. Go ahead and say hello to anybody that might be listening, guys.
Thanks, Rich. Howdy, everybody. Howdy, fight fans.
Thanks, Rich. Howdy, everyone.
Okay, guys, this is round 6 of the second season of predictions that we've been doing. We'll recap how the crew is doing after 5 rounds of our fight predictions in a minute, but first, here's how we score the results of our predictions. Recapping the scoring system. If you pick the correct fighter but don't get the correct method around, you earn 4 points. If you pick the correct fighter and method or the correct fighter and round, you earn 7 points. If you pick the correct fighter, round, and method or correctly call the winner by decision, you earn 10 points. Here's how the guys did on the last prediction show that we did. David, Damon, and Rich went 5-0 with their picks. Jacob, Alex, Wes, and Murat went 4-1 with their picks. Here's how we placed in round 5. In first place, David Preux went 5-0 with 35 points out of 50. In second place, we had a tie between Damon and Rich. They both went 5-0 with 32 points out of 50. In fourth place, we had Jacob Cooper. He went 4-1 with 31 points out of 50. And tied with Jacob was Alex Schlinsky. He went 4-1 with 31 points out of 50. And then we had a tie for 6th place as well between Wes and Murat, who both went 4-1 with 28 points. Okay, here's how things are looking after 5 rounds of predictions. In first place, Damon is now 22-8 with 151 points out of 300. Second place, Rich is now 23-7 with 149 points out of 300. Third place, David is now 21-9 with 145 points out of 300. Fourth place, Wes is now 20-10 with 134 points out of 300. Fifth place is Alex, now with 14-9 and 107 points out of 230. Sixth place, Jacob is now 9-1 with 57 points out of 100. And in seventh place, Murat is now 7-3 with 52 points out of 100. Okay, guys, let's get started. UFC 171 Hendricks vs. Lawler on Saturday, March 15th, 2014 on pay-per-view, Fox Sports 2, and Fight Pass. Okay, we'll work our way down from the main event. So let's start with the main event, Johnny Hendricks vs. Robbie Lawler for the vacant UFC welterweight title. I've got to say straight away, guys, that I'm a fan of both of these fighters, and this should be a great fight between two southpaw fighters. After the GSP versus Hendricks bout at UFC 167 on November 16, 2013, that many fans, fighters, and industry insiders felt that Hendricks had won, GSP immediately in the post-fight Octagon interview by Joe Rogan said that he was going to take some time off, and that taking some time off did indeed transpire, and it became a retirement of sorts for GSP, which led to GSP vacating the title and the belt. And this is what has led us to this vacant UFC welterweight title matchup between these two men. Okay, guys, how do you see this one unfolding, and what is your prediction?
Yeah, really excited for this fight. Both definite game opponents who can slug people's head off. I'm thinking this is going to go to the third round, and it's going to be Hendricks by TKO.
Yeah, I actually see it, the two brawlers, I see the first round playing out as more of a feeling out round, and I think the second's where they're really both going to start letting the fist fly, and I'm going to go with Hendricks by a round 2 TKO.
Okay, this one is pretty interesting when looking at the numbers and stats for both fighters. Hendricks is a respectable favorite by both oddsmakers and fans. Looking at the physical stats, age won't be a factor. Lawler has a slight advantage in height of 2 inches, but he has a decent 5-inch reach advantage, and he's usually much heavier in weight than Hendricks. Lawler also has 15 more fights than Hendricks, but even though he's the more experienced fighter, with 7 more wins and 7 more losses than Hendricks, he struggled with consistency in his MMA career. In Strikeforce, he was 3-5, but in his second stint in the UFC, he's won all 3 of his fights. But Hendricks seems to have the better list of fighters and wins most recently between the 2 fighters. And I think that Hendricks also has better takedowns and better takedown defense than Lawler. Both guys hit very hard, and both of them can take a shot. Hendricks only has 2 decision losses on his record, and Lawler has only been KO'd once, and that was 10 years ago by Nick Diaz. And that might make some think that this one will go to a decision, but I think somebody's going to get knocked out in this one. I think Hendricks is going to be looking to make a statement after he was shortchanged in the last fight for the title against GSP. So I'm going to go with Damon in this one, and I'm going to go with Johnny Hendricks by TKO in 2. Any comments on that one before we move on?
Yeah, I'm wondering to see if Hendricks is actually going to try and use his grappling in this one, because they are both such dynamic strikers. You never know. We could see him actually take it to the ground and pound him out that way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too. I was thinking it's going to be a TKO and 2 on the ground.
Yeah, that would be the smart move, especially since Lawler does have that reach advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've seen with Fitch, Hendricks only needs that one shot. And Lawler too, pretty much. But I think Hendricks has definitely got more power.
Yeah, it doesn't, like you were saying, and I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really make sense to take that risk on the feet when he's got, a 5-inch disadvantage in reach.
And such great wrestling as well.
Exactly. Any comments, David?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I saw it unfolding. I figured they would actually use a little grappling in this match, both being just heavy-handed and doing that feeling out process. And then I thought maybe they would grapple a little bit in the second, a little bit more of that feeling out process. But that's what I thought when the third round was going to explode. But we'll see how it unfolds. I think it's going to be a really interesting matchup, and I think it's really unlikely it'll go 5 to the decision. So.
Yeah, I don't think I did see some people out there thinking that it might go to decision, but I don't see that at all.
I don't know. You never know. They could both really try and play it safe, seeing as it is for the vacant title, and you know how it is with title fights. I think Hendricks was a little bit more cautious when he was going against GSP as well. It seems title fights, they tend to be a little bit more cautious going into the fight because they want to get that belt or they want to retain it. So we'll see how it plays out, being a title match.
Yeah, and I believe in the UFC rankings, Hendricks is number 1 and Lawler is number 3. So that's an interesting matchup there, considering that Carlos Condit is actually ranked number 2 in the UFC in that division.
Yeah, but he lost to Hendricks via decision. But
yeah.
He still lost.
Any more comments on that one before we move on?
No.
Nope.
Okay, fight number 2. Carlos Condit versus Tyron Woodley. Okay, another welterweight matchup here against the number 2 and the number 11 UFC welterweight ranked fighters. How do you guys see this one going, and what is your prediction?
Well, the way I see this one going, I think Carlos Condit is going to be, he's always such a game opponent, excellent game plan. He utilizes great defense. He has great offense as well. He's the taller. He's got a favorable reach advantage. I think it's going to be a really, really tough fight for Tyron Woodley to win. However, I think just with the explosive power that Tyron Woodley has, and I feel that he can really utilize that if he actually does get inside Carlos Condit. This one, I had trouble thinking that it would go to the decision as well. Both fighters are game opponents, and it's good to see the two, I guess, the co-main event and the main event, having 4 fighters that like to finish, but I'm going to go with my heart on this one, and I'm a big fan of Woodley, so I'm going to pick him as a second-round TKO.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tyron Woodley. He's a hometown boy. He's from St. Louis, but unfortunately, I think Carlos Condit is way too experienced and is the better fighter. I mean, Condit, we've seen him. He's his game plans are totally different for every fight. He comes in, and you never know what to expect. And Woodley, unless he uncorks and actually lands, I think Condit's not gonna really give him that chance to do so. I believe that Condit is going to pretty much just pepper him and win it on points and actually take it to a decision.
That's interesting. I'm going to give my rundown on this one here. I also think this one's going to be an interesting fight. Odds makers have this one as a toss-up, but MMA fans favor Condit by a large margin. Looking at the physical stats, as David mentioned, Condit is taller, 4 inches, but he only has a 2-inch reach advantage. There's only a 2-year difference in age, so that typically isn't a factor when trying to decide how things might turn out. Condit is a bit better at avoiding the KO and also has a bit of an edge when it comes to knocking out worthy opponents. Woodley has a bit of an edge in avoiding and getting takedowns. I think this one may have a chance of going to a decision, but I'm going to go with my heart, and I'm going to go with Condit by TKO in 2. So we're all different on that one. We all agreed on the first one pretty much how it was going to wind up, but we all seem to think something different on this fight. Any comments, guys?
Condit's got a lot to lose by losing this one. He doesn't want to go down in the rankings, and he knows that Woodley has that power, and like I said, you never know with Condit. I mean, he could come out with a flying knee or something and end it in the first. He's an explosive fighter, but he's also a smart fighter. So it depends on how he feels he needs to finish this, whether it be a decision by playing the chess match or by TKO by playing the I'm going out there and finishing this match.
I think it's going to go to the ground. What do you think?
It's possible. I had thought that as well too. If that is the case, Woodley, if it comes to a jiu-jitsu game, Woodley he's definitely outclassed there by a large margin. I was watching an episode of that Bully Beatdown, and I mean Tyrone Woodley couldn't even submit a guy 5 times in 5 minutes that's never fought in his life. So you know what I'm saying there. I'm just hoping for a great fight. I mean, I seldom pick with my heart. Condit is a tactician, in my opinion, the smartest fighter in the UFC. But yeah, I got to go with Woodley with this one, and I'm hoping to see a flashy knockout. He's got momentum right now. He's got a lot of momentum behind him, and he believes in himself.
So you think it's going to be a knockout on the feet then?
I do. It's just everything that he's got so much confidence and momentum behind him, and him thinking that this is his year. Like, he is absolutely convinced that this is his year to shine. So.
Yeah, if I was picking with my heart, I'd go with Woodley, but I'm picking with stats and knowing Condit,
Yeah, and especially when you see what happens when Condit fights a guy who's known to be a striker, he usually tries to stay outside and avoid that, and at some point he'll take it to the ground. So.
Yeah.
Or at least he'll try anyway.
Both guys, I respect both guys a tremendous deal, and I think as representatives for the UFC, they're both great guys, absolutely.
Okay, any more comments on that one?
I'm good, sir.
Yeah, like I said, I would love to see Woodley take it and actually go up for the belt, because he's from St. Louis. But man, this is really hard one to do that in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
like
might,
I said, odds makers have it as a flip of a coin, so anything could
yeah,
happen. But
I'll probably be kicking myself in the pants come Saturday night, but I really like Woodley and I think he's great. One of the reasons why I became a fan of him straight off was one of his first, I guess, people that he looked up to and admired was GSP. And I thought, well, that's great because he's looking up to someone that's, respectful in the sport and stuff. So I've been a fan for a while, and I might kick myself in the pants Saturday, but
yeah,
I'm going with
I
my
like
heart.
both guys. I
Yeah,
don't have anything against either one of them.
exactly.
To me they're both classy guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like both of them. It was a hard one to pick, but I'm picking by experience.
Yeah, and again, like
Yeah.
I said, I struggle with is it going to go to a decision or not. But this one, I'm going with my heart and going with Condit by TKO in two. I think I said.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, let's move on to number three: Miles Jury versus Diego Sanchez. How do you guys see this one going, and what is your prediction for this one?
Another fight I'm really excited for. Again, like Jury, he's always seems like he brings in that total game face. He's there to fight. Same with Sanchez. This is the fight that I think has the potential as fight of the night, going the distance. But I think with Diego having a couple previous losses, I think he's going to be insanely hungry to actually win. Um,
Oh,
so
you
I am
broke
going
up. You broke up there. Say that
to
again.
just with the recent losses that Sanchez had, I'm really thinking he's going to be insanely hungry to get that win Saturday night. So I'm going to pick him by decision. I think he's just going to be way more active and score more points that way on the feet, landing lots of shots and stuff.
I buy that.
Yeah, after coming off such an amazing fight with Melendez, I'm going with Sanchez by decision on this. I think he's got that hunger back. He's looking to get back in the win column. He looked really exciting in the third round of that fight.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it, man?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
he was
man,
awesome.
fight of the year, one of the best fights of all time.
I
Yeah,
think so too.
absolutely.
Okay, my breakdown. Diego Sanchez is a slight favorite by odds makers, but MMA fans seem to favor him quite a bit more than the odds makers do. Looking at their physical stats, both men basically have the same height and reach. Jury has a fairly decent advantage in the age factor. He's 7 years younger than Sanchez, and typically that plays into an advantage when factoring in things with all of the stats when you're looking to say who's got the advantage. I've been a long-time fan of Diego Sanchez, and I don't think Jury is going to be able to finish him. I think this one goes to a decision, so I'm going to go with odds makers and fans, and I'm going to pick Diego Sanchez to win by decision. Comments on that, fellas?
Yeah, I had looked at that age factor and I was kind of surprised by that. But then I was thinking, Diego, he still seems like he's full of heart and like a 16-year-old kid. So I kind of put that aside pretty quick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if Melendez couldn't KO him or TKO him, I don't see Jury doing it
Yeah.
either.
yeah, exactly. All right, so that's nice. We all agree on that one. Sanchez by decision.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are going on hard on this one too, though. After his last fight.
Yeah,
Oh, he's just so exciting and so fun to watch. You
Yes.
know there's no way he's not going to bring it into the octagon, and that's just amazing.
yeah. And Jury says he wants to go after him, and he says he's not going to stand there and just battle and duke it out like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I guess he's got another game plan in mind. He didn't expose what that game plan was, but I guess he's not a fan of Diego's style, where he stands there and just hammers it away in the middle of the octagon.
I think with Sanchez is a vet, so
He's skilled in other areas, actually. I mean, I've seen pretty much all of his fights in the UFC, and I mean, when it goes to the ground, he knows what he's doing. So even up against the cage and the clinch and stuff like that, I mean, he knows what he's doing. So I don't think Jury can bring anything to him that's going to be the big game changer and put the win in his column. I think Diego's got this one.
Yeah, Diego is now ranked 15 in the UFC. I did not see where Miles Jury was ranked. I'm going to guess he's somewhere in the 20s. I saw a couple other sites say that he was listed at 23 and 24. So going to be a tough fight for him because that's a bit of a move up in competition for him.
Yeah.
Any more comments, fellas?
No.
No, just excited.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the next one that we're going to be covering here. Hector Lombard versus Jake Shields, the number 12 man versus the number 6 man in the welterweight division. Man, this card is full of welterweight matchups, so it looks like there's some planning going on for
Good.
after this event as to probably, rankings shifting in the UFC after this one is over. But how do you guys see this one going, and what's your prediction for this one?
Yeah, this one, again, another matchup I'm really excited for. Shields, we all know how phenomenal he is when it comes to jiu-jitsu. The one thing that I've just not been impressed with him is how fast he seems to wear down in fatigue. He's got, he's so tough. It's really impossible for me to think that Hector Lombard can finish him. Do I think that Lombard can outpoint him and actually control the octagon? Yes, I do. This fight I actually see going to the decision as well, and I think it's going to favor Lombard. Just out of the fact that every time I see Shields fight, he always fades at the end. I do like Jake Shields. I think he's a great fighter, but it would be awesome to see him come better conditioned into the fight, but it always seems like he fades at the end, so I'm going to go with Lombard by decision.
Yeah, I'm actually picking Lombard to actually win this one by TKO in the second. I think he's going to come out and he's really going to try and put it on Shields, knowing that Shields his stand-up is his biggest weakness, and his wrestling and jiu-jitsu is where he shines. So he's aware of that, and whether he can stop it or not, that's going to be the main thing. If he can keep Shields on the feet, I definitely see Lombard TKOing him.
Yeah, even though Hector Lombard is ranked number 12 and Shields is ranked number 6, Hector Lombard is a slight favorite by odds makers, but MMA fans largely disagree with that, and they favor Hector Lombard by an extremely large margin. Looking at their physical stats, Shields is 3 inches taller with a 1-inch reach advantage. Age is nearly the same with Shields at 35 and Lombard at 36, so that's probably not going to be a factor in things. Stats seem to indicate that Shields is slightly better at avoiding and getting the takedown, but Lombard has some very heavy hands, and he has a big edge there. I think Lombard wins this one, so I'm going to go with Lombard for the win, and I think it'll be Hector Lombard by TKO in 2. So me and Damon agree on that one.
Yeah.
Any comments?
I think Shields has got I think he's got a pretty decent chin, and that's why I went for the decision, actually. I've seen a lot of guys try to finish him, and he always seems to worm his way out or not get that big strike landed against him. So I think even being a more experienced fighter now and knowing that Hector has that, I think that's why I picked the decision with that.
Yeah, his mindset has to be reflecting some of the feelings that he's having, where he's saying that he feels like he's being overlooked by the UFC, and we all know that DFW doesn't really care for his style of fighting. So I wonder if that is going to play any factor into things for Jake Shields.
Shields really, he did great in Strikeforce, but as soon as he came to the UFC, it was like showing. It looked like Strikeforce was the Little Leagues compared to the UFC, but we've seen that isn't true. A lot of Strikeforce fighters have come over and have done really well, except for Shields. Shields has done all right, but he hasn't lived up to his hype. Like I said, I think Ellenberger knocked him out, and I'm definitely thinking that Lombard will too.
David, any more comments on that before we move on?
No, that's good.
Okay, let's move on to the last fight that we're going to do, but which is the first fight on the main card. Fight number 5, a light heavyweight matchup between Nikita Krylov versus Ovince St. Preux, the number 19 non-UFC ranked fighter versus a not ranked fighter. So that one's kind of interesting, but we know that OSP looks pretty good as of late in the UFC. So how do you guys see that one going?
Yeah, OVP definitely. I think he's got a lot of potential actually, and I think he is gonna make a rise up through that division. So I got OVP by TKO in round 2.
Yeah.
He just seems, yeah, he seems to be the much better. Comparing the two fighters, he just seems to be better in every aspect. Not that Krylov's not game, but you never know what happens Saturday. But I got OVP by TKO round 2.
Yeah, I'm going with Ovince St. Preux by a round 1 TKO. He seems to like to get that first round TKO. He's done it multiple times, and Nikita Krylov, he has been knocked out before by Saul Palele, whatever the hell his name is. Palele. And his.
I looked at that too.
Palele's a beast.
So he is obviously prone to the knockout or TKO knockout, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think OSP definitely wins this. I think it's going to be in the first round.
Yeah, I struggled with that too. Looking at what odds makers are saying here, they've got St. Preux as a large favorite, and fans overwhelmingly agree with that call by odds makers. Looking at their physical stats, both men are the same height, 6'3", but St. Preux has a slight advantage with the reach at 1.5 inches. Nikita Krylov has a major advantage in the age factor, being that he's 9 years younger, and that stat almost always favors the much younger fighter. I don't know a whole lot about either one of these guys. I know that I've seen OSP fight in the UFC a couple times. He looked pretty impressive to me. For some reason, I just can't recall Nikita Krylov all that much, but I think this one's going to end by KO or TKO, and I was struggling with round 1 or round 2, but I'm going to go with OSP by TKO in 2. Any more comments on that one?
OSP's has fought Giga Masali, and he lost, but he actually took it to a decision. So he's fought some known opponents. He hasn't really gone against anybody big name in the UFC, you know. But the fights I've seen him in, he's looked really good. Like his last fight was a round 1 KO TKO, and you know they were talking about him being around a first round knockout guy, and sure enough, that fight he knocked the guy out in the first round. So I want to see more of this guy, and I'm hoping that I'm right about him getting the TKO on the first. But it's going to be exciting to see how he matures in the UFC.
Yeah. Any more comments on that one, David?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, is actually seeing his career through the UFC, because before he was even in the UFC, they were talking about him eventually joining the UFC, and obviously they had high hopes with him doing well. It could be that he's the first fight on the main card. This could just be the testing ground to see if he is going to be that fighter that can step it up into perhaps the co-main event.
Okay, that's the end of the main card. We're running close to the end of the show here, but I just wanted to ask you guys, was there any preliminary card bout that you wanted to speak about?
Huge card, 13 fights on it. I'm just insanely excited for the whole event itself. Haven't looked forward to an event this long since last year, so.
Yeah, there's not really any other one. I mean, there's a lot of fights, but I mean, not one single one that I wanted to look at.
Well, I see an interesting one.
Gastelum and Story looks good.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the one I was going to mention. Kelvin Gastelum versus Rick Story. That one seems pretty interesting because now they're really upping the game for Kelvin Gastelum because he's ranked number 31, not within the UFC. That's outside the UFC rankings. And Rick Story is ranked number 14 in the UFC. So it looks like the UFC is really seeing some promise in Kelvin Gastelum. So I thought that one would be a little interesting to speak about. But what do you guys think about that one?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. The odds makers literally have that as a flip of a coin, or it could go either way from what everybody's saying. So it'd be neat to see Gastelum make a good performance.
Yeah, I just see Story pretty much. He's got a spotty record, but man, he's got some wins over some name guys, and I just think Story is the one that's going to actually welcome Gastelum into the UFC.
Yeah. Who do you think is going to get that one, David?
Story.
Oh, I'm going to go with Gastelum by decision.
Yeah. I'm stuck here because I really like that kid, Kelvin Gastelum. He's a really young guy, isn't he? He's like 19, 20 years old or something like that, isn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, I really like that kid. I mean, he really astonished
22.
and amazed.
He's
Yeah, he
22.
really astonished everybody and amazed them on the season of Tough. He was the last guy picked, I believe, on that season of Tough, and he wound up winning the whole thing. And he even stopped Uriah Hall. So nobody expected that. So I guess he's been doing fairly well in the UFC, and I guess, like I said, they see some promise in that guy. So they're giving a huge step up because he's not even ranked in the top 20 in the UFC, and he's getting the number 14 guy. So interesting.
Yeah, I think the Hall fight, to me, for the Tough finale, I mean, I've seen Hall playing around way too much, and I don't think he really gave him much of a fight. Gastelum looked really good in it. He's got a lot of heart.
Yeah, that's the fight where Hall was actually trying to put on he was channeling his Anderson Silva and his...
Exactly.
What was the other fighter he was mimicking in that fight? Because he looked like he was clowning in that one.
Yeah, he did. He made it. That was one of the worst Tough finale fights I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's a shame because I really like that guy. He seemed like, such a decent fella, but... and then he wound up after that finally getting a break and getting the win over Levin when Levin decided to call it a day.
Yeah, he's got talent. He needs to bring it into the octagon.
Yeah. Okay, I believe that's the end of the show. We won't count that one in the predictions because none of us were really prepared to make a prediction for that one. But we're at the end of the show. Any final thoughts before we go, guys?
Just thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to this event Saturday night. So pumped, and hopefully I'll do well. Woo!
Yeah, agree with David. I'm not too worried about the picks. I'm more worried about watching the fights. If I don't pick right, oh well. I'm just looking forward to some good fights.
Well, being that was only the three of us that showed up for this show, we have a chance to move ahead of the other fellas. I don't know where they've all been. We've been trying to get a hold of them, but for some reason we can't seem to coordinate for whatever that may be. But between the three of us, there's going to be a shake-up in the standings between the three of us because although we did pick a couple of fights the same, we picked enough differently so that the three of us are going to have a shake-up in the standings between the three of us anyway.
I kind of thought that with my Woodley pick might be able to boost me up a little bit, and I figured that was my safest one to go with.
Yeah, that's either going to be a detriment or a big advantage for you.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too, just because he's like I said, a hometown guy, and I would love to see him. They've brought the UFC to Chicago, but they've never been to St. Louis, and to have a champ from St. Louis, it would be nice to actually finally get an event here. We are a big city. We're a big sports town.
I'm honestly surprised St. Louis hasn't had an event yet because you guys are a huge sports town.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we've had a Strike Force event, but that was held like at the Family Arena here in St. Charles, and but St. Louis, I mean, you've got so many venues
Oh
that
yeah.
they could put it in, and it's. Some people say that we're not an MMA market, and it's like, what are you talking about? Wrestling, one of the wrestling's main start was in Tennessee and St. Louis. So.
And how many fighters? There's a bunch of MMA fighters that are in the UFC from St. Louis, right?
Yeah, from St. Louis and from Missouri. I mean,
Yeah.
there's starting to be a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't been here, but
You know what? It's just bad market reading, honest to God.
yeah,
That
it
really
is. There is a shit ton.
Well, it might
of
also have to
UFC
do
fans.
with the amount of people in that area, because they like to have the fights mainly in the big cities on the coast, so or in Nevada.
Well, they're going to be doing one in Ohio not pretty soon, and at St. Louis, we've got I think 2 or 3 million people in the surrounding area. St. Louis City isn't that populated, but the surrounding area is pretty populated. And like I said, when the Cardinals can sell out games almost regularly, I think they can get enough people to come to that. To a
Petition
UFC
DFW and the UFC, man. See what's up with
Heck
that.
yeah. Heck
yeah,
yeah.
I was talking to
Tyson Griffin.
huh?
Was it
No.
Tyson Griffin?
No, I was actually talking to Woodley on Twitter, saying, "Man, you gotta represent St. Louis and bring the UFC here." He's like, "I don't know, I can't." So if you're the champ,
Yeah, exactly. Then he has say for sure.
I would love to see it here. We're a big market.
Yeah.
I don't know where the analysts are getting their things. I mean, we've got, I think it's Michael Spinks. He's a boxer. We've had boxing here in St. Louis. We are a market.
Combat sports has a great history in St. Louis in that manner, like with boxing and such too. And I mean, wrestling being that, showy aspect of it. But hell yeah, I mean, if my city of 1.1 million, they want with no surrounding population, if they can host a UFC event here and sell it out, I guarantee St. Louis would be more than the same.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Thanks for joining me again, fellas. We'll do another post-event show on March 16th, the day after the UFC 171 Hendricks vs. Lawler event. And as always, you all are welcome to join me for that one, and maybe we can get the other guys to join us as well. Okay, fellas, time to say goodbye, so I'll see you all next time.
All right, take care, everybody.
Have a good one.
All righty, guys. Bye-bye.